always thought women liked me. I never thought I had a problem. But the fake news keeps saying women don't like me. I don't believe it.
That was Donald Trump last night at his rally in Pennsylvania, where he continued his assault on women, trying to basically bludgeon them with the idea that the only person that can save women from the mess he created is the one who created it. And I think it's a real clear sign that Donald Trump knows he's in big trouble. So in this video, I'm going to have more for you from that moment. And I have some polling that shows that Donald Trump is in real trouble. And then I have Kamala Harris making a surprise move that puts Donald Trump even in more of a defensive position when it comes to abortion. So let's get right into it. In this first clip, here is Donald Trump obsessing about abortion. I think he's actually projecting, and then I'm going to talk to you about why I think this shows that he's actually going to lose the 2024 election.
That's all they talk about. The country's falling apart. We're going to end up in World War III, and all they can talk about is abortion. That's all they talk about. And it really no longer pertains, because we've done something on abortion that nobody thought was possible. And I give those three brilliant, if you think about it, and it's six, but the three that we put in, but six brilliant justices of the United States Supreme Court, a tremendous hand for their intelligence, but also for their courage. It took a lot of courage to do so.
One, does anyone notice that Donald Trump actually couldn't finish his thought there? He started off saying, that's all I want to talk about is abortion, and then he moves into the Supreme Court justices. There's no real connective tissue there. Donald Trump calls that weaving. I call that dementia. Secondly, Donald Trump says that this is something the nation is obsessed with. I think in some ways that's true, but I also think Donald Trump is obsessed with it because he knows this is a losing issue for him, and he's actually between a rock and a hard place because his ego wants to do what he did in the second half of that clip, which he wants to project that this is a win for him. This is something that only he could accomplish. But by saying that, he's also admitting that this is all happening because of him. Women who are not getting the health care they need, women who are dying, women who are suffering because of Donald Trump. And then one more point, this reminds me of COVID. I actually believe, and you're probably gonna hate hearing this, I actually believe Donald Trump would have won in 2020 if he would have just managed COVID somewhat normally. If he would have just seemed like he was at least a little bit on the straight and narrow when it came to managing a once-in-a-generation crisis. But he was not able to rise to the occasion. His worst instincts took over. He politicized mass. He said that COVID was just going to disappear, or it was just going to be something we had to live with, and he was completely unable to meet the moment. I think there's a lot of correlations here between COVID, the COVID crisis, and the abortion crisis we find ourselves in, whereas Donald Trump wants to just pretend like it's not happening, wish it away. This is something everyone wanted. This is actually great because now it's going to the states. This is something women need. You might have seen this post around the internet, and it's deranged. I'm not gonna read it all because I have too much respect for your time, and two, because Donald Trump actually reads part of it. And it's funny because I always thought that these things are just like, when he does these little rants, I was like, oh, I just thought these are just things that he's just shooting off from the hip. Turns out these are planned because Donald Trump used part of this insane post in his speech from his rally yesterday. By the way, I added creepy music because I just thought it kind of warranted it. Here it is.
I make this statement to the great women of our country. Sadly, women are poorer than they were 4 years ago, much poorer, are less healthy than they were 4 years ago, are less safe on the streets than they were 4 years ago, are paying much higher prices for groceries and everything else than they were 4 years ago, are more stressed and depressed and unhappy than they were 4 years ago, and are less optimistic and confident in the future than they were 4 years ago. I believe that. I will fix all of that and fast, and at long last, this nation and national nightmare will end. It will end. We've got to end this national nightmare. I am your protector. I want to be your protector.
Yuck. Here is Gretchen Whitmer responding to these statements.
So I think, you know, this guy just doesn't understand what the average woman is confronting in her life in this country. And how could he? He's not lived a normal life, unlike Kamala Harris, who has worked hourly jobs, who knows how important it is that women have health care and access to the medical care that they need. And so he's just deranged.
Deranged. Exactly. And for her part, Kamala Harris knows this is an issue that she is really winning on, and she is keeping Trump on the defense. Look at this historic announcement she made just moments ago about what she will do as president to make sure Roe v. Wade becomes the law of the land. I think this is a great idea, and I think, honestly, it is historic.
It is well within our reach to hold on to the majority in the Senate and take back the House. And so I would also emphasize that while the presidential election is extremely important and dispositive of where we go moving forward, it also is about what we need to do to hold on to the Senate and win seats in the House. That being said, I've been very clear. I think we should eliminate the filibuster for Roe, and we need and get us to the point where 51 votes would be what we need to actually put back in law the protections for reproductive freedom and for the ability of every person and every woman to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do.
So in that Wisconsin radio interview, Kamala Harris announced that she supports removing the filibuster to make sure that Roe v. Wade becomes the law of the land. That means that instead of needing 60 votes in the Senate to pass any legislation, it would move down to 51. This means that we could actually accomplish a liberal progressive agenda and wouldn't have to rely on moderates, not even moderates, just like the Kirsten Sinemas and the Joe Manchins of the world to make any sort of change. That's the reason why we're able to pass federal minimum wage laws, because of them, and actual, you know, voting rights legislation because of them. And so we can't take that same risk with Roe v. Wade. I think this is a really smart idea. Now, the inverse of this is that if she is saying this to do this with 51 votes in the Senate, do you think Mitch McConnell, whoever else becomes the Senate Majority Leader on the Republican side, isn't going to do the exact same thing to try to pass a national abortion ban? So we have to win. We have to win. We have to keep the Senate, and we have to win the House. Have to. But I think we're on our way to winning. Don't count your eggs before they're hatched. But 57% of women are supporting Kamala Harris. And if you look at this chart here, Kamala Harris is faring better on trustworthiness, right temperament for president, physical health to be president, abortion, treating immigrants humanely and protecting immigrant rights. Now, the inverse of that is that when it comes to dealing with the economy and dealing with the inflation, it is closer, but the margins are closer than they are on these other issues. So I think all things being equal, as long as we make the election about these freedoms and not about immigration, I think we're on a good path. And like I showed you, Donald Trump is not able to be disciplined enough to talk about those issues in a way that resonate with the American people. He talks about immigrants eating cats and dogs, and that inhumane moment where he said, send them back to legal migrants who live in Ohio. So all I'm going to say is this does not feel like losing. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like on the video. Be sure to subscribe. It really does help the channel. And if you made it to the end, thank you so much. It's actually the best way to support the channel. And leave a heart, a blue heart, if you made it to the end, so I know you made it. See you soon.
I know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?